What's going on? Nick Powell's publisher of 1851, here for another episode of Coffee and Analytics. Yet this time, because it is noon Eastern, I'm going with the coconut water instead. So it's coconut and analytics. Okay, so a few things that we're going to dive into today. I will get to the point of the message or the email or the piece that I sent out on family. But first, a few things. So obviously the big news of the week is bank collapsing. If we go backwards to the greatest moments in franchising, it tends to be driven by some sort of event that triggers people to have fear in their lives. And so that could be being laid off, that could be turbulence in the economy, that could be some sort of event that's causing friction, or it could be something like coronavirus that makes people question or evaluate the value of life and therefore say, I'm going to go do this on my own. And so when we have a bank collapse, the reality is the fear there is twofold. One is for brands or businesses or tech companies that have used the bank or financing to leverage for getting their idea going. There's payroll challenges, which clearly drives some fear. And then you also have the monies that are sitting there, assets under management of those high net worth individuals that have parked dollars there, who may be evaluating whether money in the bank is the right decision. And so as a franchisor, it's your opportunity to capitalize on this, but capitalizing on something doesn't mean taking advantage of people. It means educating them that there's an alternative to how you grow wealth with money. And so you have these databases. I've thought about this, the cold lead databases. And there's tons of them, tons of human beings that overcame the fear of looking to buy a business and then settled on maybe franchising makes most sense for me. And then they researched the category and then they inquired to your business. And so you think about that. Let's say that candidate has fallen off in the pathway. It could be for various things. It could be timing. It could be they decided to buy something else. It could be fear. And so they sit on the sidelines or they go into this category of unresponsive, and you don't do much to this audience. And yet, if you use this as an educational opportunity to ping them and say, here's our viewpoint on what a bank collapse can mean and why franchising might be an alternative solution to protecting your value or the portfolio that you have, as well as building wealth, it seems like a good time to hit your audience, those that have raised their hands, and just educate them that there is an opportunity to take money and invest it in a business that can eventually grow. I've talked about this before. When I'm evaluating business opportunities, I'm looking at a 3-year return on investment. So I'm looking at how much cash am I going to get for 1, 2, and 3. I'm good if I make nothing in those first 3 years, but after year 3, I want to have paid back my debt, and now I want to be in the positive. And that's the way that I look at the viability of a business as it relates back to what's important to me. A lot of people don't do that, but that's my approach. And so if I'm looking at my money that sits in a bank that's just collecting dust, or fear because what could a bank collapse mean for my portfolio, now all of a sudden there's an opportunity to get in front of maybe not me, but someone like me who might be looking at opportunities. And so I use fear in 2 routes here. One is the fear of what's happening in the world. And so we talk about the bank collapse. We can look at the collapse of some of the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency that has decreased in what the value of a coin is. And then you can look at the layoffs, even big companies like Facebook, which I'll talk about in a second. And so you have the fear there in the career, which tends to drive a buyer to say, okay, maybe now is the right time. And then the other thing that you need to do as a brand is you need to leverage the fear of missing out. And that happens with supply and demand. So now you capture someone who's interested in owning an opportunity, and then you show them that there's a deterioration of availability in your market or in the market that they live in because you are either signing franchisees or you're opening units, and that creates this opportunity to lift up and push your brand to say, this is part of the why you, why now. That if you don't act now, you're going to miss out on it. I've referenced this before. There was an article a long time ago. I think it was in QSR, but I remember reading it. It was the founder of a restaurant chain, Panda Express, and he said he became a franchisee with Tide Cleaners, and his quote was, "I didn't want to miss out on the next McDonald's." And so what you hear there, you're missing out. You see an opportunity that you think is really strong, and you don't want to be left behind if the territory gets sold up. And so that's some of the things that you need to do as a brand, is you need to lift up that storytelling of supply and demand back to the fear of what could be going on in someone's life, because buying a franchise is super hard, and majority of franchise buyers are risk averse, meaning they don't want to go create their own business. And when they're asking you questions about how this works, or they're looking at item 19, or they're looking at the total investment that goes into it, they're trying to poke holes in that, or even selecting real estate because they want the pathway of least resistance. And so this is your opportunity to play into that. So that's an important part. Now I'm going to get into the topic of family, but I'm going to tie in marketing to this as well. I think I've always thought this, that the buyer process ends up being, can I see the point of differentiation in the product? That tends to be a very important piece. Like, am I passionate about it? Do I see that there's a pathway to success with the product? Is the vision sound? A lot of franchise brands miss out on this. They're not clear on what the vision is, and they don't shout it from the rooftops. And therefore, when a candidate lands on the website, they're confused. They don't know what the opportunity is or where the brand is going. And so there's no one for them to get super excited about. So I know this is where personal branding of the leadership turns into a super valuable piece of the sales process. So product, vision, cost to get in, and how much I can make has to be sound. And so you have to look backwards at your business. And I would challenge you. I've had this conversation with a few brands where I'm like, hey, I know that your investment is at 400. You really need to be closer to 3. How do we do it? And usually the response is impossible. And I end up saying, cool, but when you bootstrapped your business, didn't you figure that out? Well, yeah. Okay. So try to take that bootstrap approach backwards to your business and see if you can shave off some expenses. Look at profitability by item that you're delivering, and perhaps you can have some economies of scale in the way that you're setting this thing up. Okay, so that's cost to get in. How much I can make has to be sound. You have to have a good business. And then where you're growing has to be strategic, in my opinion. Concentric circle growth, where you're protecting brand awareness and you're elevating sales awareness throughout a market, seems to be the pathway of least resistance. And then validation, which ultimately I should probably start with validation. I think when you can see a brand where the franchisees are expanding, it ends up being such a critical element to the why you, why now, because the franchisees know more than what's in an FDD, and they're putting their money into scalability, huge value. And so if you go backwards on everything I just said, do you have content? Do you have PR? Do you have marketing? Is the message sound on your website? Are all 5 of those elements into your sales process? Are they in your call slides? Are you reiterating this back to your cold leads? And are you sending this to your consumers? And so you build out this matrix of evaluating if you're actually getting the lift that you really need to get the growth that you desire. It just gives you a sense of, are you doing enough in your approach to hit your numbers? I said, I'm going to get to family. Here's where that starts coming into play. We're evaluating a business right now. I've spent a lot of time evaluating it. It's got size, it's got volume, it's got leadership, a no BS approach to support. They're actually supporting their franchise owners. Their franchisees are scaling, super excited to pump more money into the business, yet their growth has stalled. I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, how is that even possible? It has all the check marks of what I would want in a business, including the sexy factor, which is it's a restaurant that makes money, which most restaurant franchises tap out at a certain percentage of net. And look at this, and so it comes down to, in my opinion, two things. One is the positioning and the messaging, and one is the marketing. And so I'm looking at this story. I will never forget walking into their corporate headquarters and just feeling a sense of depth. Like if I were a franchise prospect, I would say, wow, this is here to support me. Yet if I take a step out and say, is that story outbound? The answer is no. The other thing that I can see in their business, anytime I've talked with a franchisee or I talk with corporate, the word family comes out a lot. And this relates back to what my note was about this month, was trying to find an insight on why are people buying, and trying to find that insight or a gap that we can close as a franchise community to say, what happens if we lift up this message? And that's family. And so the notes that I put in here, I said I started looking at the responses of all these franchisees that we continue to talk to. And here are the last statements in order. My goal is to spend more time with my kids. I enjoy spending time with my wife and 2 kids. Outside my business, my kids, running 2 businesses takes up a lot of time. So I really cherish spending time with my family. I'm a baseball junkie. Both my sons play in college. Love watching them, hanging out with my family. My fiance lives close by, and we have 4 kids between us. And so you start hearing this, and this goes right down order. And I could keep going deeper than this. And they're all talking about family. Yet, if we were to open up any magazine, I happen to have Global Franchise Magazine sitting on my desk. First ad, School of Rock. Become a master franchisee and join the #1 child education franchise with kids playing. That's the customer. There's some ad about some international franchise expo. Let's see if I can find like 2 more. Oh, not a lot of ads here. Crunch Fitness, rapidly growing across Canada. Let's see if we can find one more. Wayback Burgers, an opportunity you don't want to miss. Okay, we'll take this one. And all you have is a picture of a restaurant, a picture of the outside, and a burger. There's no human beings in here. Their why you, why now is you don't want to miss, which supply and demand. Over 30 years of proven success, massive franchise opportunities available, local and national marketing support, online and in-restaurant training. And so I look at that and I say, well, we just had the insight. Like, we know why people are buying. 1, they're buying because of the people behind your brand, and 2, they're buying because of the family. And yet I could probably open up any franchise trade magazine and look at the thousands and thousands of dollars spent each month to get in front of this audience who is considering buying a franchise. And there's nothing that connects with what our franchisees are saying after they spent 6 months looking at an opportunity. And so I'm not going to label this an aha moment, but I'm going to tag this as something that's deeply valuable to the sales process that doesn't seem to be put out in the messages, which is why people buy. And when you have that insight, now when you build your marketing campaigns, you build them against the insight of why people are buying. Now, all of a sudden, when they flip through a Global Franchise Magazine, I happen to get that in the Delta Sky Club, which I thought was awesome. Or they're looking online at your content and they see this, and it's going to connect with them because everybody's saying they're doing this for their family. And so you think about what you do in your lives. Why are you, busting your ass for lead generation? Or why have you busted your ass in your career? I have a feeling there's going to be a percentage where I have a feeling they're going to say, I did it for myself. Cool. But majority of us do it for a bigger picture. We actually can have a vision of how this can impact our families. You can look at your children or your wife or your parents, and you can say, wow, if I work so hard here, this is the outcome. but we take that insight and we translate that over to the messaging that goes outbound, and it's not there. And so if you're trying to find the area of opportunity, I call this out as this is the opportunity. So go to your website. Anything about family, how you treat your franchisees like family, how families are involved in the businesses? Probably not. So now comes opportunity: content, PR, marketing, digital, family. And so the point of these is not for me to pat myself on the back and say, I'm the greatest person in franchising from a marketing standpoint or a messaging standpoint. It is to use data and analytics to give you guys an insight that might give you a pathway to telling a better story. And so I go back to that brand that I've been evaluating that has all the pieces. And I go to their website, and it's a picture of a product, and it's a picture of their building, and it doesn't have family, and it doesn't have people, and it doesn't answer those pieces. It doesn't elevate the support. It doesn't show that when you join this brand, you're part of the family. And so I get really jazzed up because I don't think the gap is that large to close. The only time that I think brands can get that lift without nailing those fundamentals is when the sales are ridiculous or the consumer product is ridiculous. They don't need all that because the demand, pent-up demand is severe and strong. But for a brand that feels stuck or is trying to find a way or a pathway to bigger things, I think there's an opportunity to take a step backward and say, am I using people? Am I using family? And I'm telling those stories across the board. Now, I do think a lot of brands don't know where to begin, and that's part of the issue. They're like, great, I love the insight, but now what? And so if you just wrote one piece, one profile on a franchise owner that started with insert name did this for their family, it might give you something of value that you're able to put in front of the right people in the right markets. I don't think franchising is impossible to win. It's super hard, but it makes it a lot easier when you lift up those elements and you put them to work. And so that's the message this month, family. I'm going to end on this because I was inspired by this comment. I was watching reels or shorts or whatever on Instagram. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that that's usually what I post in my stories. I do an aggregate of the things that make me laugh. This one I didn't post. It was a guy, and he's talking to two radio hosts. And he said, if I gave you $1 million cash right now, would things be better for you for some time? And they said, absolutely. Like, that'd be great. And he's like, you would stop complaining. But absolutely. He goes, what if I gave you $10 million cash, but you don't wake up tomorrow? And they said, no. And he goes, so there's a swing for $10 million. You'll say no, that everything will be better. But for $1 million, you'll say yes, everything will be better. And he goes, put that in perspective. Maybe the value of waking up tomorrow is actually worth $10 million or more, $100 million. And so he said, every time you wake up in the morning, that's a chance to get it right today. And that connected with me. I was like, yeah, I mean, like appreciate the small things, find the ability to have gratitude, look at your baby wins as wins. Don't diminish them, and get out there and continue to make it be a part of your business. One question before I let you go. I read about this in one of your newsletters recently and agree with it completely. Family, huge. How could I tie my family in better? And for us, pets and how they are part of the family. EJ, it's very simple. I think when people put down their guard and make it about humans, which is what I'm doing right now. I mean, like if I go backwards and say, hey, 10-year-old Nick, you're going to be talking to a screen, and you're going to talk for 21 minutes nonstop without anybody talking back to you, I would have said, no way, that's not happening. So I feel like it puts me in a vulnerable position, but I enjoy the impact that I could potentially have. And the reality is with your family, you showing a picture of you and your kids and you going on vacation and the pets that you have easily opens up something that people are going to see that you're real. as a CEO, and I think there's tremendous value in being real in franchising. I mean, we're playing with one of the most important decisions that someone is going to make as a human being, and I think that's a pretty big deal. So hopefully that helped. Thanks for asking a question. I like when there's questions in there. Happy St. Patty's Day. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Look forward to talking next month. Holy cow, it's going to be Q2. I'll have some sort of insight, I'm sure, that I'll be able to talk about in a month from now. But I appreciate you. Go give your families a hug and figure out a way to insert family into your franchise. See ya.